On the meeting, please.
That's gotta go back. The boss is ready.
I'm calling the meeting to order. I ask for quiet. Thank you.
Yeah.
Speaking of alternates, so we have, let's see. Present, anyone online?
Bob Warford.
We have 4. Just one. Okay. So we have 4 regular members here. We do have a quorum. The minutes of January 13th, 2025, any corrections, additions? I'll make a motion, we accept the minutes as presented.
I'll second it.
Any discussion? All those in favor? Aye. Yeah,
I said aye.
okay. Next up is opening a public hearing. Item 5.1, special permit application, a change of use of 326 Route 87. Addition of new restaurant use, applicant Jefferson Monroe, Gardens of Our Descent Farm LLP, doing business as The Good Farm. Owner is Savvy ROI LLC and Chan Family Investments LLC, map 17, lot 47, zone M, lot area 0.79 acres, section 52.7. This was received January 13th, 2025. So to that end, would the applicant like to speak to this, or would our town planner like to speak to the application?
Sure. I would just very brief. And I think Jefferson, the applicant, should be the one to do the major presentation. I would just note that this applicant and the general use of food service was allowed to be placed at the location, the landmark at the corner of 66 and 87. A couple of months ago as a temporary use. The town does not have a specific regulation or ordinance for basically temporary food trucks. Generally speaking, they are, a truck or a trailer, and so are classified as vehicles for the most part. And insofar as they are temporary, are not considered sort of, land uses that are regulated by planning and zoning. A number of communities do have ordinances for that, but in this case, it was the applicant's intent to essentially try out this location with an eye on establishing permanent restaurant status in the landmark and adjacent to the landmark. And so that's where we are. And I will let the applicant indicate their plans. They've submitted a narrative along with a marked up site plan that was based on a prior survey of the landmark facility. Yeah, we can look after his presentation. We can go through some of the correspondence we've received.
Thank you, Mr. Monroe.
Should I stand anywhere in particular?
Where you're comfortable. Yeah, you have to address everyone at once.
Okay. Great. Hi, everybody. I'm Jefferson. I moved to Columbia about 3 years ago with my wife. I had farmed in Massachusetts for about 15 years before we moved here, and we moved here to buy Walt Nancy's Tibbers farm on Route 87. When we moved here, we knew that we wanted to operate a pastured meat farm, and we were going to market most of the, sorry, I can speak it. Well, we knew that we wanted to market most of the meat that we raised through a food trailer as a value-added product. And we've done that the last couple of years using a mobile vending trailer called Twin Beaks Fried Chicken. And one of the things that we were excited about when we looked at the space that we're applying for is that It's a location in town because we have not been vending in town very much, even though we live here, mostly because there aren't a lot of events for us to go to. We were in Lebanon for a while at the farmer's market as well as the Andover Farmers Market. And we were excited to kind of try to sell some food to people in town. I know from speaking to some of our customers, they were excited about the prospect of there being prepared foods available on their way home or at lunchtime. And in general, this space is gonna be a kitchen to support our mobile unit as well as a location that has some takeaway. So, we try to use as many local products as possible and support as many other farmers as we can. And we're hoping to use this space also as a sort of like a extension of the farm, as more of like a little farm market in a way. So we'll be selling our chickens raw as well as some of the pork that we raise and lamb. So it's gonna be, we're classified as a restaurant because we are serving prepared foods, but we're hoping to kind of do some other things as well. And we would like to be a good citizen in the community and really kind of not ruin anybody's day for the most part. So, I spent a little bit of time looking over the, kind of like the planning, document from 2016. And I know it talked about repurposing buildings that already exist for businesses, and this does that in terms of the fact that it was a hair salon, which has a similar water usage to what we're expecting. So from a septic perspective, it should kind of be similar. And those people, I guess, wanted people to repurpose things while keeping the character of the building similar. And while we're hoping to use a mobile kitchen outside of it, that's ultimately a very temporary thing. So if anything went sideways, we could always just hook it up to our trailer and take it away. And from conversations I had with John, we're planning on moving the trailer when we're not in use. I know that the location that we have been using, which was not directly next to the building, was fairly visible, and in particular, there was a bit of light pollution that you could see coming off of it, but I don't know if anyone's noticed this past weekend, we kind of moved the trailer to where we're hoping to use it, which is directly next to the building. And there should be basically no light coming off of it because the service window is gonna be facing the building. And that's where the food's gonna come out, so. Yeah, we just kind of wanna serve the, yes.
How big is this trailer?
Excuse me, he's making a presentation now. At some point, we'll ask the public to ask
Okay.
questions. And I'll ask you to identify yourself and stand up. And I'm sorry, I didn't get to that part of the process. We will get there, but your questions, you'll have an opportunity. Thank you.
Well, that's most of my presentation regardless.
So I was gonna segue into, the next thing I was gonna ask a comment from our town planner, but I did want to just give you an idea of the ground rules for a public hearing. We ask that you direct any questions that you have to the chair. Technically, because this is a public hearing. Pardon me? Because this is a public hearing, you can ask questions of the applicant, but I asked them to go through the chair. Please wait till you're recognized before you speak, and I'll ask you to identify yourself and you give your address. And then whatever questions you have or comments you want to make on this application, this being a public hearing, it's for information and also for answering questions. Mr. John, any thoughts from you?
Yeah, well, so there are a couple of things. The first thing I would note, and I don't know if would it be useful if I put a map of the site on the screen? Would that would
Very helpful, I think.
okay. All right. So all right. Can that be seen?
I think some of the people see it, can't really see
Yeah,
it.
if you could, yeah, there you go. That's getting better.
Okay. So just by way of orientation, north is more or less down on this map. So we're looking at this basically over here on the top of the map, sort of diagonal is Connecticut Route 66. The eastbound direction towards Willimantic is off the map to the left. Route 87 is on the left boundary of the map, heading more or less north to south as you go from the bottom of the map to the top. So this is the landmark. I'm sure everyone knows it well at the intersection. There's the upper level, and then the property comes around to the lower level where you have the larger parking area. And this rear part of the parking lot is where the Twin Beaks trailer had been. Again, this is sort of a lower level. It's a kind of a walkout lower level. This portion of the building, this L of the building, is where the former hair salon was and where a portion of the Twin Beaks operation will take place. You'll note just above that on the map where my cursor is now is the proposed location of the trailer, the smaller trailer than had been used most recently at Twin Beaks. And then to the rear of that, towards the property to the north, he's proposing a couple of seasonal outdoor, picnic benches, outdoor dining. But the driveway, entrance, exit would not change. The parking area, as has been established, would not change. And so the trailer would be tucked in here, and this right here is a bit of a retaining wall that helps the transition from the upper level to the lower level. And so it's largely shielded essentially on three sides, the proposed location of the trailer. A couple of notes. I would note that the Planning and Zoning Commission has several special permit review criteria to help determine whether or not a particular use is appropriate in a particular site, and includes considerations for reducing negative or potentially negative impacts on the neighborhood, things that include lighting, screening, noise, odors, that sort of thing. And then just we can go through some of the public testimony that was submitted via email, I think, when you get to the actual public testimony, Mr. Chairman. But the one thing I would note at this point is that this hearing will have to be held open because the applicant has not yet completed the review process with the health department. And so we haven't gotten confirmation that the existing water and septic system is sufficient. As Jefferson noted, this should be a lower water use than the prior salon. So we don't believe there should be a septic issue, particularly when much of the food prep is going to be done inside essentially a self-contained trailer. But we still need that confirmation from Eastern Highlands Health District before you close the hearing and make a decision on this. So this is basically to open the hearing, to receive public comment, answer questions the commission may have, but we still need to wait for Eastern Highlands. That's all I have for now.
Okay, any questions from the commission at this point? Barring that,
I do have one question. Is the parking of the trailer out front a marketing situation because you don't have, or is it because you don't have enough room in the proposed spot to do everything?
It's more because of the latter. The kitchen space is relatively small, and honestly, we'd rather not install a vent system with the attendant everything that goes with it, and that's partially a ceiling issue because it's a basement. It would be hard to put the ductwork in that's required, but then also it would increase essentially the impact on the building, if that makes sense. Having the exterior kitchen kind of allows us to avoid that. So, I mean, it doesn't hurt that people can see that we're outside,
Right.
But that's not the key piece to it. Mr. Chairman, I will say, I think a couple of people might have had a hard time seeing the map, and I'm not sure if it would make.
I can't see it.
Yeah, would it be okay if they walked around to take a look, or? I think he said if you wanted to walk around, to take a look at it.
We could pull
Is
it
that a
out.
question for me?
Oh,
I can't hear you.
oh, I'm sorry, I was saying that if you want to take a closer look at the site plan, the chairman said that was fine.
Yes, no, thank you.
Oh, yeah.
Thank you very much. I appreciate your offer because none of us can see it. And I have to say that what was in the packet
Yeah, just, yes.
is not much of it.
Okay,
But I do have a question. Should I wait?
yes,
Yeah.
just, let's wait till we get to the public comment portion. Pulling up what was in the packet, because I'd like to be able to reference that when we get to that point.
Yes.
I think I just have, right, there it is. Okay. Okay, so, the next point is, Dave, are you all set?
I'm also,
Okay, so at this point, I'm gonna open this up to public comment and questions. The gentleman in the back of the room who was starting to pose a question or make a comment, I'll ask you to, if you'd like to testify or ask questions first.
Well, it's fine, I just want to know the size of the trailer, and the other question is that hair salon, now, I understand it's not in operation right now, right?
That's my understanding
So,
also.
is there plans to have that salon also be a functioning business?
I
You know,
can't
and how
address
does
that. That's not,
contrast with the use of that lot there?
okay. So whatever questions are, let's get them out and then
Okay.
hopefully we can address some. Yeah, maybe we take multiple questions and then handle them in batches, whatever you're most comfortable with.
Can I ask?
Yes,
Thank you. I'm Ingrid Wood. I live at 322 Route 87. And I see that you have on your map, on your site plan, an entrance on Route 87. And it's there, or well, on the screen, as well as in this very hard to read map that wasn't included in the package. And so you're going to eliminate the bushes and the fence along Route 87. And it shows an arrow going into the back and the elimination of basically the vegetation in back. So I am not understanding this clearly. And the big question I have is that, I mean, you have an entrance at 66 and an entrance at 87 and bigger parking in back. And you have your food operation, I'm going to call it, it's an, I think it's a commercial trailer, that's a food trailer, a prep trailer, because that's what you are
Ingrid, if you could address
talking
the
about
questions.
installing, and you're going to do
Ingrid,
cooking
Ingrid.
9 AM.
Point of order. Yes, if you could address the questions to the commission and then we'll parse them out for answers. So as part of the public hearing, we request all questions be addressed to the commission. And then pose them to the commission, and at the applicant's option, they can speak to those questions. If
All
you
right,
could,
thank you, Rick.
here,
So, if I understand this correctly, because I'm trying to understand the business model, being a neighbor and, being affected by this new proposed, business is according to the, proposal that was in the packet, is that you're going to install a new commercial prep trailer to prep essentially the food trucks. And I'd like to know how many there are, but it is a preparation facility primarily for the preparation of food trucks, but also for walk-up customers. The hours of operation are 9 AM to 9 PM, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, 60 hours a week, preparation, cooking, and the cooking, all frying and griddling will occur in the food trailer located outside the door. So will all of the meat cooking, the frying, the deep frying, the, barbecuing, whatever, occur in a place that will affect the residences which are located right outside of where your map shows the trailer is located. Because right now, today, we smell, my neighbors and I smell fried chicken cooking during the day. And it's been this way for about a month. And frankly, I've never smelled any cooking ever from the landmark in all the years I have lived here since 2008. So this commercial food preparation for a food trailers or vehicular food establishments, however you wish to call them, is a commercial operation of a commercial food operation primarily. And that is a new application in this location, which is a mixed use district. And if I understand, Rick, the planning and zoning document is that the mixed use district is to be compatible with, in harmony with, the residential district that has always existed in that area and that exists today. And I just want to say, yes, there was a little restaurant, I remember this, and a little bakery, but they were low intensity. And I went to them, the natural food store, the frequented the bakery to help them succeed. But you know what? High intensity cooking for commercial preparation is a new application. It's not a restaurant where you just go casually to have a croissant or a bun or converse with your friends. This is a real intense business. This is a different type of business from what was there before. And I would like to know where the cooking is going to take place and how the odors and how all of the activity associated with prepping the food trucks is going to take place and how many there will be. Because this is a commercial operation, not a casual little tiny bakery cafe. Thank you.
Sure, I appreciate the questions. At this point, would you like to address the questions?
Sure.
Yeah, the applicant, the first gentleman's question, and then Ingrid's questions.
Sure. And please let me know if you can't hear what I'm saying. Okay, I know you said earlier you had a hard time hearing. Yeah. Should I speak louder? Is that helpful? So the trailer is 6 feet by 12 feet, the actual box itself. And then the overall length of the trailer is probably more like 15 feet. Does that answer your question, sir?
Yes.
Okay, great. Ingrid, if you don't mind me calling you Ingrid, the plans that you were looking at that we used are site plans from, I think, 15 or 20 years ago. We're not doing any external changes to the building. So all of the vegetation, entrances, nothing is being changed. Okay, that was on there because I think it was a proposal from another time with the landmark. Does that make sense?
So you're saying that there will not be an entrance?
Mr. Monroe,
Excuse me.
Oh, I'm sorry, yes, I'm sorry.
Typically,
Yeah.
it isn't for you to question
Okay, I'm sorry.
the public.
Yeah,
They have a right to question you because you're the applicant. So the process is, if you want to make sure you're understood, you can put a question out there, but there's no direct cross-examination of the members.
I apologize, I'm just trying to make sure.
I realize that, but yeah, nobody
Okay.
who testifies is subject to
Oh,
cross-examination.
yes. So, there will be no changes to the exterior of the building. We're gonna keep all of the landscaping and entrances and exits the same. There'll be no changes there. Regarding the hours of operation, you know, when I was applying, the hope was that we would end up doing some sort of breakfast service, because I know there's very little in the way of breakfast in Columbia. It seems like we're probably not going to do that, to be honest. So I would be happy to amend my application to more like 11 to 7 or 11 to 8. I just wanted to have a maximal flexibility around that. And, you know, if the board wants to see that, they can let me know or whatever. But, you know, I would like to be a good neighbor. And I do think that scents are a little bit easier to smell this time of year, because the cold weather kind of tamps down on letting things kind of dissipate. But our use is, you know, unfortunately, the regulations don't really classify what type of kitchen you use or what the intensity is, and so historically, there have been restaurants in the space, and we're hoping to kind of keep with that history. And that's why we just, you know, from the research that we did, we thought this was a good location for this. So we're hoping that by parking the trailer closer to the building, that scents will be kind of contained and or kind of blown, not up Route 87. But we haven't done that up until now because we need to install an electric plug in order to do that on the building. We haven't pulled any permits to do any work until we had this hearing, so. That's him.
Any other questions or comments? And let's go through everybody who has questions or comments, and if you have additional comments or questions that we haven't addressed, we'll go back for another round with anybody who might want to speak to those. Yes, ma'am?
Shirley King, 31 Upper Woodland Terrace.
Yes.
I have concerns with the traffic flow. It's a horrible corner, either coming out on 87 or on 66. And the busiest time of the day for the traffic would logically be the busiest time of the day for a restaurant, especially a takeout restaurant. I have real concerns about that traffic pattern there. And second, this is the most historic building in the town, and I would fear fire with a restaurant that has, I mean, it's, you know, it's not just a bakery, it's a restaurant, and the restaurant is in the truck, the cooking part, but still, fire concerns me of the landmark. It's had its issues in the past. And I would hope that, we would not encourage, that to be in proximity to that building.
Okay, thank you. There was another hand up.
Noreen Steele, 156 Pine Street. The question I have is, most of the cooking is gonna be done outside the landmark in a trailer. So is it for something inside the landmark? And what is going to happen to the inside of the landmark? Why is the landmark necessary to your work?
Okay, thank you. Hi, Maureen. Yes,
Sure. So to answer the second question, in order to serve food out of a mobile vending trailer or kitchen, you have to have a base of operations. It's a location that you do your dishes, that you prepare the foods that you're gonna serve. We make most of our food from scratch, and so having a kitchen that we can do more than just do our dishes at is really important. We portion out all the chicken that we raise at the kitchen, and then we fry it on the trailer, but we're not a business that just buys stuff in and drops it in a fryer. We go from kind of soup to nuts. And so the space will be used mostly to do preparations of that. Inside, we're gonna have a couple of electric appliances. We'll have a small oven and what's known as a steam kettle, which is basically for making soups and stocks. And there's gonna be a number of sinks for doing dishes and preparing foods, but otherwise the interior of the space, it'll be very recognizable to anyone who's been to the hair salon before. It just doesn't have chairs in it anymore, so.
Okay. Any other questions? Yes, sir.
My name's Greg. I was asked to attend by my sister Harriet Durway,
Okay,
214 Route 66. And she asked me to attend to
Greg, your last name,
Durway.
Joey.
Yeah. She asked me to attend because she would not like to see this application approved. She feels that it doesn't fit in with the character of the neighborhood and that it would really be a creeping commercialization of the center of the town. And she's concerned about the odors and the visual of the trailer being there, also noting that the trailer being there, if it functionally serves the same purpose as an addition to the building, is in fact really an increase in the premises, whatever the activity is that's there. So she would like to see the neighborhood maintained the way it is. And she thinks is, you know, you have a good business and the food is good, but she thinks that there'd be more suitable places in town for it, down along 66 somewhere, and you probably have better traffic counts. But that's her thoughts on the issue.
Okay, thank you. Jake, comments? Yes, sir.
So, Matt Wilkinson, and live at, NHS Brokerage Road, Columbia, actually here in support of the operation. We've known Jefferson and Aaron since they moved to town. They run a wonderful farm. We've, also our farm, we've vended with them at several other locations. And they run a very clean, neat, tidy operation. The landmark has historically had bakeries, it's had restaurants in it. It has commercial use, so it's not a change in use. We don't feel it's a change in use. The town has voted on several occasions, probably the largest in a town meeting with the right to farm and the farm tax exemption. So it is a heavily ag community. And this is supporting an ag business in town, which keeps open land. It's fitting with the nature of the town. This business is a small family farm run business, which is the nature of the town. It's historically, this was the center of the town, the gathering place for the people. This brings back that, keeps that tradition, keeps the character of the building in place. It's not alter the historicness of the facility. So it meets every requirement of the zoning and regulations and the ordinances in town. It keeps up with the use of the town as well as the traffic patterns. It is a commercial site. It has a street light there that regulates the traffic coming in and out of that parking lot, which helps with the safety, which can be a concern. And the primary entrance to their site is actually off of 66, directly adjacent to a traffic light, which helps mitigate that traffic issues there. So I think it's a perfect use of the site. It makes sense. It's in keeping with historical uses of that site. And it's a small family farm, family business, which is what Columbia has in its planning documents historically talked about promoting and keeping to keep the nature of the town as a small family community. So,
Thank you. Yes, ma'am.
Meredith Peterson's, 36 Route 87.
Thank you.
My concern is that at this point, to me, maybe I'm not following things correctly, but that the business plan seems to be still in flux. I heard it was mentioned that there is a possibility of picnic tables there. Is that an expansion of use? I would think that planning and zoning would want a specific business plan presented to them that when changes were made to that it would have to be approved by the planning and zoning.
Just a point of clarification about what you're saying. Are you saying a plot plan for the site or a business plan?
Well, a plot plan, but even the business plan, I'm confused about what the former hair salon will be used for. Is that going to be, will the public be able to walk in there for some reason? The hours were not presented as Mr. Monroe has indicated tonight. They were presented as extended hours. Is there any possibility that the fumes from the cooking could be mitigated in some way to make it less obtrusive to the neighborhood? I think there's a lot of still unanswered questions here that I would think we would want addressed before an approval was made.
Thank you for the questions. Would you like to address anything that has been put out there?
So I would say that the former hair salon, people will be able to enter. So they can see what's going on inside. We're planning on having a very, very small retail / counter space for people to either put in their orders for the food they want or to purchase farm goods. In terms of, the picnic tables, they're on the plot plan. And we're hoping to have them out seasonally so people can sit after they've ordered some food. If that's a real problem, we don't have to have them, honestly. They were just, it seemed like people might want to sit down when they're eating their food. Otherwise, I don't know if there's anything else specifically, but am I missing a question that?
Well, we'll go around, make sure everyone's had a
Okay,
chance.
yeah.
Yes, ma'am.
To further that, how about bathrooms? People that are going to come and want to sit at picnic tables will most likely need to use restrooms. Has that been addressed in any way, shape, or form? And the septic system in the former salon, there will be dishwashing and prep. Has the septic system been examined for use?
I
We
can
have
answer
a
that. I
problem
can
with
answer-
the,
I
with
can
the,
answer that question, that's a process for the health department, and we have to receive a report that this is an acceptable septic system for the use prior to closing our public hearing, so that's an open question at this point. But as far as the bathrooms, that is the question I was going to have, so you can throw that out to the applicant, that would be great.
Sure, as a takeaway restaurant, we are not required to have a public restroom, and we're not planning on having a public restroom.
Okay. And other questions? Yes, sir.
Yeah, so I'm Brian O'Hara, and I'm actually from over the border on Tobacco Street in Lebanon
Okay,
and 373. And I'm a vegetable grower. I grow a lot of potatoes. So I just thought I'd come here and let you guys know that you have here a very good businessman that has a very good eye for operating. He's gonna be a successful businessman. He has a great reputation. He sells in farmers markets that we attend. We've seen him in action. He has bought vegetables for us for the last couple of years. He buys a lot of vegetables from us, particularly potatoes. He goes through a lot of potatoes. He's a very important to our farm operation. He has bought thousands of pounds of potatoes from us in this last year. He makes French fries as well as fried chicken. And so that has been just very supportive of our operation. He supports other farmers. He creates sauerkrauts and different things, and he buys all of his goods from all the growers around here. He is a no nonsense, exactly the kind of guy you want to deal with. Great to deal with, great businessman. And you know, you have something, I want to stress that you have something here that is really special. Like, people really like his fried chicken. He's doing it right. He raises the chickens, he fries the chickens, and then he's gonna sell them to your people. Like, I've met people buying the chicken from him in town here and there. They cannot believe that they're able to get this kind of fried chicken right here in the center of your town. So there is a lot of excitement around this. And, so I just wanted to stress, you know, I know I'm just over the border, you know, I can throw a stone into Columbia. You know, the fields are right there, right near him, but you know, he's really important to us, and I just thought I'd go here.
thank you for the comments.
Yeah.
Yes. You ready?
Well, thank you. I still do not understand how a commercial preparatory kitchen which is a commercial preparatory kitchen for food trucks and food establishments that are vehicular, is appropriate to this location, which is the only parcel, by the way, on this corner that is zoned mixed use. It is surrounded entirely by residential parcels. And I believe, based on the descriptions I have heard today, that this is not a low intensity operation, but a medium to high intensity operation to be successful, and it will be successful. And that is contrary to the notion of a mixed use zone, which is to be in harmony and in keeping with the surrounding residential zone, according to the planning and zoning document. And the idea of any business in a mixed use zone, regardless, is that it is to be in harmony. It is not to degrade, it is to conserve, to use the words of the document and the regulations, and to preserve, and in fact, hopefully enhance the surrounding neighborhood. I do not see how this type of business is appropriate to this site. It is a good business, but it's appropriate to a commercial site because it will be successful, but it will be hampered by the same issues that hampered that little fine bakery and the natural food store, which is, it's a tiny, tiny inappropriate space for this type of business. You need something, a commercial kitchen, a true commercial kitchen, which has lots of easy parking and good access, not from two state highways, but that's off the state highway in a reasonable way. It could be a tremendous boom and boost for Columbia, but this is not a good location. That is my observation. And my other question that was not addressed, I don't think, is that if there is to be an establishment such as this, or any establishment, there needs to be barriers. My neighbors, John and Jen Pyers, I believe Jen is on Zoom, are very concerned, as am I, that there are high vegetative barriers. So we do not need to look at the business, the day-to-day operations, all of the food trucks, the food trailer, the people who are the customers, the delivery services. Today, we look at all that stuff, we see everything that's going on. We don't want to see that. That's should be part of the plan because that's in the planning and zoning document, if I understand it correctly. And I don't think that has been addressed.
Okay. At this point, I'd also like to get comments from our Zoom attendees. We have two hands up that I can see. One is Ross Orr.
Hi, this is actually Harriet Durway, 214 Route 66. My brother spoke partially for me. I wasn't sure that I could attend this meeting and get on it, but my computer seems to work. Anyway, I wanted to really touch base on the intersection and the traffic count. It's an extremely, I think we can all agree that Route 87 and 66 is an extremely dangerous intersection. It comes over a hill. There's probably an accident on that corner every other week. We are talking about a food establishment with a lot of customers, a lot more traffic pulling out of that parking lot and turning left onto Route 66, going toward the center of town. There's cars that come flying through that intersection. That's extremely dangerous. And now we're looking at a high traffic count coming in and out of that location, as well as coming down the hill from Willimantic down 66. You have your blinker on to take a left and cars crawl right up your butt. So I think sight line and traffic count makes that an even more dangerous intersection. So I have concerns about that.
Okay, thank you for your comments.
Yeah.
Was that, are you all set right now?
Yes.
Okay, thank you. We had another member of the public via Zoom. It's under the name of Julie Elkis.
Hi, I want to make a comment for, we
Your name
have
is Julie
done,
Elkis,
yep, Julie, yep.
and your
I live
address?
at 16 Hennequin Road. I have
Okay.
visited Twin Beaks. We first found them when we were camping at Briley. I just wanted to comment on the smell first. There is no smell in the spring or the summertime until you are about maybe a foot or two away from the camper or the trailer. I also want to just make a comment. My son is celiac. They are absolutely amazing with allergies. We currently have to drive 30 minutes or more to get somewhere where my son can eat something that I have not made. And I think is an excellent thing to add to this community. I know in the school, there are a ton of kiddos that have allergies with no options anywhere in this area. They do an amazing job and they make sure that the kiddos are safe and anyone with allergies are safe. And I think anyone that is willing to put in the extra work to do that definitely deserves to be a part of this community. Thank you.
Thank you. Just as a point of information, understand we're a land use agency and we have to judge the use of the property in the context of our plan of conservation and development and our regulations. And how good the food is immaterial. So that this really gets down to land use decisions by this board and conforming with our own regulations. We have to conform with our regulations. So the context of our consideration is going to be as to how this application potentially is in compliance with those regulations. A lot of the comments that are made, I try to give the public wide latitude and not rein in comments, even if they're comments that maybe we can't take into account because you're not probably familiar with the process that we work with on a weekly basis. And we really appreciate all of the comments that we've received. And there's nothing else online.
No, actually, Jason Rico, 102 Lake Road, Columbia.
Sure.
So to that point, how does this fit into the plan of conservation and development?
Well,
can I ask that question? Because
you could ask that, and if the applicant would like to address it, and ultimately the commission will probably examine that in depth after we close the public hearing and we're in commission only deliberation. It's a good question, and I appreciate you bringing it up.
Yeah, I mean, sort of within keeping my understanding is that the goals of the planning document that guides the board focus on the use of the word kind of rural character with some frequency. And, you know, from sections that I remember reading through, they kind of talked about how you want to concentrate your intensity of use in different areas. And while I understand that the landmark is in a mixed use area, it's also an area with the town complex, the elementary school, the post office, repair shop, and several churches, one of which gets. And a library, thank you. Yeah. And as such, it's, to me, it is very much the heart of town. And when my wife and I moved here, we didn't really understand why there wasn't more happening at the landmark. Now, we didn't at the time think that we would be trying to put a kitchen into that space, but it feels like it is the heart of town, and as such, there should be more opportunities for community in that space. It's within walking distance, which of multiple high use locations, as well as, again, the church, which is directly across the street, which gets a tremendous amount of traffic. And within that space, there are many, many cars that park at the church every Wednesday and Sunday. And in terms of intensity of use of traffic patterns, to me, that seems comparable, and I have not lived in town long enough to know how many accidents have happened at that intersection, but I did not, I haven't seen any, so, I understand the idea that there's concern that we'll have hundreds of cars coming and going from the parking lot, and I would love that, but I feel like our intensity of use is gonna be much lower, comparatively, so, part of the reason this site appealed to us was that it felt like it was taking a building that has been used as a restaurant and has had a cafe and has had other businesses in it. I had a customer not that long ago who worked there as a dishwasher, like 50 years ago. And he was like, I worked in this building when it was whatever restaurant was in there at the time. And, we're kind of hoping to have a similar effect. Hopefully we'll still be here and it will be something that people will talk about as having not existed anymore. But yeah, it's a commercial building that we're hoping to use. So, yeah.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Chair,
Yes,
it's,
John?
yeah, may I just address a couple of procedural things to help clarify something maybe for the public? Okay, so I'm gonna share my screen very briefly. Just again, to explain why we are here in this setting for this use. So I put up a shot for a page from the town zoning regulations. This is section 33, describing the mixed use district, which again is the district that covers sort of the core intersection of 66 and 87 that the property is subject to. The only sentence in here is that describes the purpose of the district is broad, and it really kind of helps explain why we're here. So the purpose of the district is to permit business uses compatible with residential uses. And among the uses that are allowable by a special permit approval here in section 33.2 are, among other things, business and professional houses, banking, personal services such as the hair salon that was previously there. And number 5, restaurants and food service, including entertainment, patio dining, alcohol sales. Drive-throughs are not permitted. So this is the category, restaurants and food service, that's permitted by special permit approval, which is functionally a judgment of the Planning and Zoning Commission. They have to function essentially as judges, and this is very much a judicial process wherein the commission has to decide whether this particular use is compatible with the residential uses that closely surround that intersection. And if you ask yourself, what are the specific considerations that the commission must determine and must decide if the applicant, if the proposed use is in fact compatible, I would direct you to section 52.4 of the zoning regulations, which are special permit criteria. And when the time comes, and again, I would note that the commission should not be closing the public hearing this evening. There are a number of factors that the commission is asked to consider to determine whether or not this proposed use is compatible. The plan of conservation and development is one. And again, the plan of conservation and development identified this area as a mixed use zone, which is to say both residential and non-residential, office, commercial, restaurants are possible at this location. Is this consistent with the purpose of the regulation, the relation of the buildings to the surrounding area, access, suitability, the appropriate improvements? And then the last couple are nuisance avoidance, which includes noise, fumes, odors, lights, glare, visual obstructions, vibrations, and that sort of thing, and the long-term viability. So all of those factors, basically A through H, this Planning and Zoning Commission will be asked to consider relative to the applicant's proposal. And the answer is not yes or no. it's not just, yes, this meets approved, no, this does not meet denied. If there are things that can be done, the commission has wide latitude to condition approval on potential amendments to the site plan, amendments to the proposal, that would make this more compatible, that would respond to potential neighborhood concerns, or potential nuisance. In this case, we've gotten some concerns about both visual and potential odor. The commission could certainly consider requiring certain, if there's a filtration or a fan system, if there are plantings that could be installed to help buffer both visually and from an odor standpoint. The commission is empowered to require those changes as part of a conditioned approval. So those are all considerations. And I'll shut up there, but I would just note that there was a letter submitted for the record via email to Mary Kay earlier that they had asked to be read into the record. And I'd be happy to do that, or if you want to have Mary Kay do that, or one of the commissioners, but it was from the neighbor, Mr. Pyers, the immediate abutter to the northwest.
Okay, thank you. Thank you very much. Let's have one other question from the, yes?
No.
I have one other question.
Thank you. I too have the mixed use district information in front of me. And also I go to the section 1 and 2, which says that this mixed use district needs to be in harmony with its surrounding areas. And that's a word in the planning and zoning document. I also do agree. I mean, I don't dispute anything, but these are low intensity uses that we talked about. A commercial kitchen to serve commercial.
You've made that point
Is a different
repeatedly.
use.
Could I ask you to
Okay, it's
just not
new.
make the same point repeatedly with respect for everybody's time? We heard you about what your comments were. If there's anything new that you have to add, please add it, or anything additional questions I would ask you, but not to make the same point over and over. And we're wide open to what you have to say, but if it's been said, let's rest on that for the moment. Yes, go ahead.
Thank you. I went through your planning and zoning document extensively. And there is one thing that's missing from it that appears in other towns. And it's a recommendation to the Planning and Zoning Commission. In no way a criticism or anything, it's just an observation. And that is that other towns have very specific guidelines, rules and regulations with regard to what I will call mobile or itinerant food establishments and the servicing of those in specific zones, the proximity to restaurants, other bakeries, other similar establishments.
Can I ask you to please speak to what our regulations are, not what they could be? This is an application under specific regulations that we have in place. And as out of respect for everybody's time, I would ask you to address our regulations and what your concerns are or your comments under our regulations. Very specifically, and to discuss what other towns do that we don't do here is not germane to this question that's before us tonight. With all due respect, I have a great deal of respect for your thoughts on things, but please just address what we have in front of us and what our regulations are.
Perhaps,
Sure.
perhaps, somewhere in your definitions, section 33, there should be a recommendation that food trucks and itinerant establishments that serve food or food vendors be defined as different from restaurants.
And please bring that up to our regulation modification subcommittee at some point in the future. But tonight, we'd like to address the regulations as they exist. That's what this public hearing is about. This applicant has made an application under our regulations as they exist. currently, not what you might hope that they might be in the future. And I respect your perspective greatly. But I have to keep this on a very solid legal footing so that we address this application as it's supposed to be addressed with our legal responsibility as a commission. So I appreciate your comments, but if you could keep them germane to this application as it applies to our regulations, that would be the most effective course of action this evening.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Any other questions from the public or comments?
One more comment, please.
Sure.
I recall years
Just,
back,
could you repeat your name? for the record?
right, everyone. I recall years back when Jack's Landmark ran in the Landmark, there was a restaurant and it worked very well. And seems to me the difference with this application versus what was historically been in that building is all the externalities that come with running a food truck or a mobile vending unit on the property. And the issues are the noise of a generator running, it's the odor of grease fryers, it's the visual presentation. And I recall also a long time ago when Collins Garage was operational, he wanted to just put an additional bay on the back of the building to do some expansion. And he was denied because of the historic nature of the center of town. And it seems to me if you're running a permanent or semi-permanent food truck on the side of a restaurant, that would be an expansion of an existing use. And it brings all the externalities that running a food truck brings to a neighborhood. And it would be patently unfair, I think, for the neighbors that live in the immediate area to have to deal with that. Especially when there's other zone areas in town that accommodate that use. And that's all I have to say about it.
Thank you. Anything else, the applicant?
I just wanted to.
Just for the record again.
Yeah, just for the record, I just wanted to,
Your name.
oh, sorry.
Your name is sufficient.
Yeah, Jefferson Monroe. Assuming that our application is approved, the plan is not to continue using a generator on that site. So just for what it's worth, that specific externality would not be continuing because we're gonna be installing an outlet that you'd be able to plug into.
Thank you.
Yeah.
If there's no other questions or comments this evening, I'd make a recommendation that, we do have some, communication that was submitted. One of them is rather long. John, would it be appropriate if we just simply put them in the record, and if anyone wants to, I would encourage every commissioner to read them, but to read them aloud into the record? Are we required to do that?
No, you're not required to read it aloud. I would just note that the letter did come from John Pyers, 324 Route 87, submitted January 27th, 2025, to my attention as town planner and the Columbia Planning and Zoning Commission, with regards to this application. And it's a 2-page written testimony that is in the record and will be included as part of the public hearing file for anyone to examine at their leisure.
Okay, I would encourage every commissioner to read that, and they're available to the public and will be in our minutes for this meeting. Yes,
Yes.
so that all these comments will be available to the public and to the applicant. And if Mr. Pyers wants to attend our next session of this public hearing, encourage him to bring those up, but they will be taken into account, and they will be part of our formal record. And then there was also a communication from the applicant with regard to health department approvals and so on. That being said, I'm gonna make, our next regularly scheduled meeting is the 10th of February.
Yes.
So I'm gonna make without any comments from the commission, I'll make a motion that we continue this public hearing to February 10th at 7 PM in this location. And continue the public hearing to that point in time.
Looks like on that.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Okay, that would be unanimous. And just for the record, any of our members that are not present this evening that want to be part of the public hearing, I'll ask our clerk to make sure that they're aware of the availability of the recordings of the meeting so that they can bring themselves up to speed. Thank you, everybody. Okay. Next up, we continued this public hearing to February 10th. Audience of citizens, anything anyone wants to bring up to us that isn't already on the. No left. We'll give a moment for the.
Yes.
Okay, anything under audience of citizens, anything from our Zoom members, members of the public? Nothing. We're gonna go into unfinished business. There's nothing to consider this evening because the public hearing is still open on the special permit that we just continued the public hearing on. Also is a standing agenda item. We're closing the door. It's a standing agenda item. We've asked our town planner to put on our agenda each meeting, our 2026 plan of conservation and development. Where, just to give you a vague perspective, we're probably 3 to 4 months away from starting in earnest the process. We have a list of stakeholders within town that we want to include in the process of requesting input on revising this. We have made it an informal decision to do the revision to the plan of conservation and development, which would be due in June 2026, John?
Yeah.
So to do that in-house with enough advance notice, by doing it in-house, it saves having to go to an external consultant and the expense of that. And we feel that we have a plan of conservation and development that is a good base to potentially make future changes from. It's a very solid document already, but does need to reflect the sensibilities of the current next 10 years or so. John, anything to add on POCD?
Yeah, I would just note, okay, so I had forwarded through Mary Kay. Mary Kay forwarded, I think, something this afternoon, which was a draft of the stakeholders list. So if there's anyone missing from that, please note and shoot me an email or send Mary Kay a message. That has, draft 11625 at the top. All of the elected and appointed commissions, a lot of various, councils, town officials, and some of the regional entities. So I'd be very happy for input on that. And then the other thing that I sent around is a very rough draft of a potential community survey for the plan of conservation and development that, sort of takes a broad range of topics, kind of focusing on those two elements, conservation, development, to kind of identify some of the priorities in town for preservation, conservation, protection, as well as identifying areas in town that are more suitable for development, the types of development, as well as questions of housing, infrastructure, things like climate change, and other concerns. So I would encourage the commission, again, you probably just saw this for the first time this afternoon. I would ask people to sort of take a look, and perhaps we can have a more substantive discussion on the wording of it, as well as sort of how to, get the word out and distribute a survey like this in the next meeting or two.
This looks very good. Thank you very much. Yeah, I'd encourage everybody to review this document, the stakeholder list being the first page with the potential questionnaire or that John has worked on, and thank you, John.
Sure.
And hopefully we can have a more in-depth discussion next meeting when we have more commission members here. I'd like as many members to weigh in on their perspective, and please look carefully at the list of stakeholders. If anybody has been left out of this list, we need to get them on it. We like to keep the input as broad as possible. We will likely be holding public hearings, general public hearings, but we will also likely be having meetings with many, if not all, of the stakeholders. And we do have to decide whether we want this to be a subcommittee or just a standing agenda item that we can handle efficiently enough within our regular meeting process. Thank you. Next up, under new business, we have a long list of proposed regulation changes from the subcommittee, the regulation change subcommittee that has been meeting with some members of the public and with our town planner, our town zoning enforcement officer. We've had phenomenal interaction with them, getting more and more we're getting a considerable amount of support and feedback from both of our professional staff members. And we've come forward with some recommended changes to the zoning regulations. John, with only 4 members present this evening, would we do well to just simply present the proposed document and ask everybody to absorb it and go into this in more depth when we have more members present at our next meeting? Would give you some subjective thoughts?
Yeah, we could kind of do this either way. Because my understanding is, from our discussions at the regulations committee, that this proposal, and again, it's proposing to modify several sections of the regulations, most of them having to do largely with agriculture, whether it's animal management or farm wineries. The regulations committee basically says we're ready to present this to the Planning and Zoning Commission for receipt and public hearing. And public hearing is really when we should have the broad open discussion, unless the regulations committee feels like you would like a little bit of back and forth on this from the, on an informal basis. But my sense is the regulations committee, and you're on that committee, Rick, so you can tell me if I'm wrong, is basically ready to present this and have it heard by the public.
Good point. Thank you.
But that said, there's no massive rush on this, and you will have one and possibly, very probably, 2 public hearings taking place at the first meeting in February. So it may be appropriate to basically receive this as a formal zoning amendment application and schedule the hearing, perhaps for the second meeting of February, or perhaps even the first meeting of March, just to give it a little space, give people an opportunity to read it through and formulate some questions. But it won't, bump into, hopefully other controversial discussions.
So I threw out the question that way because I want there to be enough time for the commission to at least process and query the committee prior to the public hearing occurring. And I'm happy setting the public hearing. Bear with me a moment.
Did we set the public hearing already?
No, we did not. We're talking about setting it either for the end of February or the first meeting in March.
Okay.
And I would suggest, given that we probably will have a full schedule through February, maybe the first meeting session in March, that would be March 10th, I believe.
Something like that.
Any thoughts, John? Give me your feedback on that date.
Yeah, no, I think that the first meeting in March sounds just right, because it would help us, clean up any of the remaining public hearing matters from other applications, and we can kind of go through this. That would be fine.
Yeah, and I don't want to go into this in a lot of detail verbally. The regulations are out there, you have them in the packet, but in essence, the idea here is we have a lot of duplicating language in our regulations. How do we streamline it and make it easier to understand? How do we take and put some common sense changes in that we've been looking for in terms of minor regulation changes, But the big one, farm wineries, we're trying to make it more efficient and more effective and easier to understand what you can do and what you can't do. And almost everything that the subcommittee is doing now is trying to make our regulations more readable and more logical and easier to deal with. And so that the public can read them and say, yep, this is probably what I can do, this is not it. There were a lot of questions in the past about that. We admit that the regulations were not as efficiently written in the past as we could have made them.
Okay,
Yeah,
we can work on that.
so, you know, I don't think any of these are groundbreaking changes, but they're needed maintenance changes and tweaking of the regulation changes. So I'd rather wait and maybe have a more broad discussion with the commission as a whole about their reaction to these proposed changes. But let's set the public hearing if we could. I'll make a motion that we set the public hearing for these proposed regulation changes for March 10th at 7 p.m.
I'll second that. We're good.
Any discussion? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, that's unanimous. Thank you.
I have a question.
Yes,
And this is just my newness, is there a mechanism within our group to discuss, for instance, the applicant that was in front of us tonight? Is there a mechanism where we just talk about it among ourselves?
when we have open discussion, certainly. And
After the hearing is closed.
After the hearing is
Yeah, oh,
closed?
yeah.
Before we vote, but after the hearing is closed, correct?
Yes,
Okay.
yeah, and it has to be only the seated members. So if we have an alternate present who wasn't seated at the during the public hearing, they can't participate in the discussion because they would then be influencing unfairly the commission, and the public can't comment when we're considering an application. I'm sorry, I didn't understand exactly, but it's a really good question.
Yeah, okay.
Yeah, so we have to be very careful. We shouldn't discuss this amongst each other because we have an active public hearing going. We can only take data and information in as part of the public hearing. So when we're in public hearing mode now we've continued it. Can't discuss this at all with the public.
In other words, I can't talk to you about it if I see you anyplace else.
Like I do in the mornings.
Yeah.
Yeah, and especially members of the public that might want to come up to you and make comments about this public hearing.
Yeah.
Be very careful. This is a very, every member of the public had a right to hear everything that we're hearing. And if we receive comments outside the public hearing, then we're not adhering to the spirit of the public hearing or the law, actually.
Okay.
So good, really, I'm glad you brought that up. Thank you.
The question when you're new. It's just natural to want to talk about things if you run into somebody.
Right.
I thought you meant
It's not
about,
something we can do.
there was a comment about what other regulations might be put into place that don't currently exist from other towns. That was the context of what I was answering in my mind, and that really wasn't what you were asking.
No.
Okay. Thank you. So the public hearing is set. Let's not discuss any of the regulation revisions tonight. I'd really love it if we had more of the commission here for that discussion. I think that's just a more efficient way of approaching it. But if you want to, we're welcome to. It's up to all of you.
Item 8.1 also needs to be received and scheduled as a public hearing. The subdivision.
Oh, I apologize. So we just set the public hearing for sections 8.2 to 8.7.
Yeah.
Oh, so I apologize. I went out of order here. So item 8.1, we have a subdivision application for Charlie Dutch of Dutch Associates and Isaac Tronick for a subdivision at Old Willimantic Road, map 10, lot 27, zone RA, lot area 7.89 acres. So we'll receive that, schedule that for public hearing. And the public hearing, we're gonna go for February 10th. That makes sense? Is that enough time to publish?
Yeah, I believe that works, Mary Kay. Is that right?
Yeah.
Okay,
Yeah, fine.
so I'll make a motion that we receive this application and schedule it for a public hearing
On the 10th.
on the February 10th, 2025 at 7 p.m.
I'll second it.
Any discussion, questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Okay, that's unanimous. I apologize, I
Oh,
blew right past that. So no discussion of the regulation revisions tonight unless somebody has something that they would like to bring up that just I love moving the meeting along. Next up is item 10, Connecticut Bar Association training, 22nd of March. I've registered or submitted to Mary Kay. Yep, the fee for this is paid for by the town.
I've registered too. So that's a Zoom meeting, right?
Yes.
Yes, it is. It's an all-day Zoom meeting, 9 AM to 4:30 PM. They don't provide lunch.
They don't send it to us?
They used to give us a box lunch when we meet
They used
Middletown
to, remember?
resident, yes. But it's really, really informative seminar.
That's the 22nd, right?
Yes, March, yes.
Okay.
You know, John, just as an aside to the bar association, they should have a town planner speak about one subject there also. That would be a nice mix-up. Instead of a day full of lawyers, you could have somebody with a smile on their face.
Okay, well, we're meeting with the Bar Association next week. I'll make that suggestion.
Anything up from the
Wasn't
commission?
Brand, a town planner, where he already became an attorney?
Yeah, Mark
Mark
Brand.
Brand?
Grants?
Yes,
Yeah,
yes.
yeah, I believe so.
Yeah, he's the one who really, yeah.
Wait, what was
I
the date?
remember that.
The 29th or the 22nd?
22nd.
Second.
22nd.
Yes, I thought.
Nine, what's it, sorry, 9 o'clock? 8:30? 9 o'clock. That's nice though, you can stay home, make pancakes and do
I have to announce, I now proudly keep two calendars, my Google Calendar and my paper calendar. I was paper only until yesterday.
Yeah.
It's a revelation. Anything anyone wants to bring up under open discussion?
No.
Anything, John, you have? Okay.
No, I think I'm all set.
Audience of citizens?
We only have one citizen.
Anybody? Thank you for being here through the
Thank you.
whole thing. Nothing under executive session.
Nope.
Let me go back to, our open discussion if we could. There was a question of meeting and, Bob Powell brought up, he thought that it might be wanted to bring up something under executive session. It was clear that it wasn't appropriate, John. I appreciated your comments and, clarification. It was not something that we can't just willy-nilly go into. We can't on a spur of the moment go into executive session unless it's a legally allowable topic to go into executive session under, and that clearly wasn't the case, and I did speak with him off record, and those questions were addressed. With that said, I'll make a motion to adjourn.
Second.
All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye, thank you so much.